This is the Drive-By with Freeway Frank.
Hi, it's Freeway Frank, and welcome to episode 10 of the Drive-By podcast, passengerless this week. It is another solo session, and I'm happy to be here with or without a guest, even though I love having guests. More to come in the next few weeks. I wanted to keep this edition of the Drive-By rather light, kind of like when you're in the grocery aisle and you're purchasing light products like light cream cheese or whatever it is, light margarine. I don't even buy margarine, but you do it to appease your mind, right? Like you're eating healthier. So going with the light one, going with the diet one makes you feel a little bit better. Consider this podcast exactly that. We've been tackling some pretty heavy issues, and regardless, have received amazing feedback from those podcasts, but I thought today would be a little bit different. Oh, how different? How so, Frank? Well, I thought it would be interesting to talk about other things besides the mess we've been in for the last 2 years. As a matter of fact, it's so relaxed here at the Drive-By Podcast Studios tonight, where I'm recording in the evening, weekday evening. I'm going to be removing my headphones and keeping it really chill and relaxed. As the song says, lean back, and I will several times during this podcast. So, do you remember what life was like prior to this 2-year mess we've been in? And I say mess because at times we were scared, mostly at the beginning. We didn't know what was happening right at the beginning. Some people are still in March 2020 mode. In March of 2022, 2 years later, feel the same way, if not worse. Well, I'll be honest, 2 years after the fact, I feel completely different. And it's a breath of fresh air for me to be living this kind of life 2 years later, because I am not afraid. I've decided that we've been there, done that, and I'm ready to move on, like many other places have moved on, other provinces, other states, other countries, and I'm waiting like everybody else for our prime minister to say, let's go. Any day now, any hour now, any minute now, it's time. It's time to move on. The restrictions have been lifted in so many different places, including, as I said, provincially, and it's time we get our lives back. So over the weekend, I went to a cafe with my wife. We went and Montreal is renowned for having great coffee houses, as they call them in other places. We call them bars. All right? You go for a coffee to the bar, and some people hear bar, they think alcohol. In some places they do have it, but you go get a coffee made by your favorite barista, and we did just that. Now, I've been a little apprehensive in the last little while about returning out in public. Why, you may ask? Well, because I thought to myself a few times, is somebody going to throw something at me and hit me in the head with something, or start yelling at me and start some screaming match in public because they don't like the opinions I've shared in the last couple of years? And then I thought, F it. Doesn't matter. If they come and they want to have a discussion, I'll gladly debate anybody who wants to debate. I don't really want to debate when I'm out on my free time, but I'll have a discussion. So my nightmare scenario has been showing up somewhere, as I said, and having somebody completely hostile get in my space and be aggressive. But I don't know why I was expecting that. But we walk into this cafe over the weekend, and the opposite happened. The owner welcomed me. Not only did the owner welcome me, he's followed me on social media, has listened to the podcast, loves it, feels the same way. Incredible conversation. Then for customers who come in, I'm like, wait a minute, is this stage? Everybody's liking what I do. This is impossible, because that's not always the case with the reaction to some of the opinions I've had in the last couple of years, specifically in the last year or so. So 4 other people come up to me and say nice things about the podcast. I mean, really nice things. These are people who know exactly what I'm doing, what I've been up to. And for me, it's a sense of relief. A, because I didn't get hit in the head, with a cell phone or anything. Not that I was expecting it, but at the same time, because I had been in radio for 3 decades, I was so used to people knowing me from the radio. And I'm just a guy from the neighborhood who grew up like everybody else here in Montreal. And as an Italian Montrealer, we grew up with a lot of the same traditions and same upbringing, same values. And I'm just a guy, just a regular guy. So I don't know. I was humbled, I guess, to realize that people have moved on, as I have for my radio career, or were now commenting about my podcast. And then I hosted an event that I do weekly here in the Montreal area, and I had 2 people take pictures with me, and both mentioned the podcast. So now I said, wait, whoa, that's 6 people in one weekend, and I've been out for a couple of hours? This is great. This is great. So again, I expect some negativity to come my way at some point, for the more courageous people who might come up to you and start saying shit. But regardless, I was ready, and I never want to be in people who are in my predicament, who have been vocal on social media, who have lost friends, family members, whatever, should never be afraid. You should never be afraid of speaking your mind. And that's I have a symbol here, by the way. Accidentally hit it, then I thought, I as well hit it again. My video guy, Anthony, is not liking this. So I thought to myself, here we are, and it was an amazing feeling, as I said. So we were out having this coffee over the weekend, and we were having conversations with people, and it's funny how people have all experienced something similar. Not all people, but here in Montreal, a lot of people participated in prohibition. Remember back in the roaring 20s? I mean the 1920s? No, you don't remember because you weren't around and neither was I, but we read it in the books. The roaring 20s were some special times, and prohibition was a big thing in North America. And so we went through our own prohibition here in Montreal. What do I mean by that? Well, for the people who are watching or listening to this in states that never closed, or countries that never closed down because of COVID, in the province of Quebec, some businesses remained open against the mandates, restrictions, or the curfews. It was business as usual. All right, so this might not be a shocker to most people. To some people, finding this out for the first time are saying, what? Wait a minute, you're telling me that restaurants were open when they were supposed to be closed? Yes, that's what I'm telling you. I think you knew that already. So we went to a restaurant a couple of weeks ago, and this was at the time that restaurants were closed. And I was a little apprehensive about showing up somewhere, especially people knowing me and here in Montreal and recognizing me. And I thought, I'm walking into this place. I mean, is it going to be safe? Are we going to get nailed with a fine? The owner's very much aware of what's going on, doesn't care. His business is still open because they're serving, via Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes, whatever. There's a free plug there. No, none of those companies are paying me. No one's paying me, by the way, anymore. This is free. Brought to you by nobody. And so they were already open. Why not serve some people, right? Why not have a prohibition meal? So I walk in thinking there's got to be a second floor, a secret room. You push a button, like in the cartoons, the wall opens and you go inside. It's hidden behind a wine cellar. And then I'm looking up at the ceiling. The ceiling's way too low. There's no second floor here. Where are we going? What's happening? So we walk in. All 16 of us meet at the front. Okay, now that wasn't suspicious at all. 16 people walking in. And I was like, oh, okay, they did it pretty well. It's pretty anonymous, but Then the waiter brings, or should I say the waitress brings us to where we'll be seated, all 16 people, and it's at the front of the restaurant. But there's like a cardboard paper on the windows. The windows, that's right. But I'm 6'2.5", and I'm looking at this, and I'm standing at the moment, and I'm seeing the street. I'm saying this is great for somebody who's 5'7", 5'8", can't see over. Even if they get on their toes, they won't be able to see what's happening in here because the front door is locked, of course. I'm like, they can easily see we're having a meal when we're not supposed to technically be having a meal. What the hell's going on here? So other people in the group start realizing it. People are a little bit nervous. We start cracking jokes. Some people are standing up against, the cardboard, showing that they can see over. And I thought to myself, this is brilliant because it's high enough to block anybody from the street seeing what's going on inside. But if you come up close, as I said, and you're tall, you could look and see that there are people having a meal in one particular section of this restaurant. So I thought, genius, because obviously if you'd block the entire window, block the entire front of the restaurant, it's going to look really suspicious. So this way, you just block part of it. No one will think otherwise. Success? Success. No one came. We had a great meal. We were there till late. Wonderful. Prohibition, loving life. And I've heard of so many other people. I thought, you start to think, are you one of just a couple of people doing this? No, everyone I was speaking to was doing this. Vaccinated, unvaccinated, status unknown. People were doing it throughout the whole 2 years of COVID. The crazy thing is, a lot of the people, the hypocrites I call them, that during the 2 years never posted anything about COVID, getting, vaccinated, but they were the first to vilify the unvaxxed and all that, were the people doing this and hanging out and having their nightlife. I like the boogie and all that, right? Secretly, their secret life. But anyway, so all this was going on. And I thought to myself, for some people, this never stopped. People just kept going for the last 2 years. They lived their life. And good for them. Good for them. So, had coffee over the weekend. It was great being out again. Thought to myself, wow, this is 2 years after the fact. It's only hitting us now, right? When you're looking at the calendar. Well, that's not true. It feels like 3 years. But you look back, this craziness all started for us in North America around the middle of March. I remember the date being March 13th because we had a poker night with the boys that was canceled. That we canceled it last minute because we were going to have it. But then everyone was warning that this COVID coronavirus 19 was deadly, and we canceled, never looked back, and life was closed since, albeit opened a few times during the 2 years, during summer till September, October, whatever the case is. Passports were enacted. The whole world went into a spiral, and here we are today, 2 years after the fact. It's nutty when you think about it, that a whole 2 years has passed, and people will always... And by the way, everyone's wondering now, wait, I thought you were going to keep this light. Well, I was keeping it light. I talked about my coffee over the weekend. I talked about prohibition. And now somehow I found myself back on this boulevard of unacceptable views. It's the boulevard of unacceptable views. Did I tell you, by the way, I had my first gummy? My first pot gummy? I never mentioned that. I don't think I ever mentioned that on the podcast before. I've been wanting to talk about it because it was such a great experience. I'm not a pot smoker. I don't do drugs of any kind. My wife calls me a narc. You're such a narc, because I'm the kind of guy that when I happen, a rare moment, in a rare occurrence that I'm smoking a joint, I have to tell everybody I'm smoking a joint, especially, or, are you high yet? Oh, hi. I was so uncool. For a guy who considers himself pretty cool, so uncool when it comes to that kind of stuff. Anyway, I tried my first gummy. My wife said to me a couple of weeks ago, let's try it. It was a Saturday night. We had just had a bottle of wine. Probably not a good idea. We shared a bottle of wine. I had most of it, being the bigger person. We had a drink before that, a meal. I thought maybe this is not the right thing to do. Our friends who brought us these gummies from another province, from Ontario, where they sell them. I don't think they sell them here, if I'm not mistaken, right? Again, I don't know much about this stuff, so I don't think they sell them here. Have been trying to get us or get me to do this for the longest time, and I'm just really uncomfortable with doing things like that. And I know a lot of other people who are as well. So I'm telling you that my experience taking this gummy was fantastic. Absolutely incredible. If you have anxiety, nice and chill. If you feel any kind of nervousness, chill. Agitated after a long day, chill. Weekend, kids are in bed, chill. Nothing to be worried about. I started with half of one. Then my wife said, see how you feel? And I was feeling really nice. She goes, then have the other half. And I had the other half. It was great. I thought to myself, I'm never, ever, there's no reason to ever, and again, I rarely smoke joints. I think I've smoked literally 2 handfuls in my lifetime, as in 10 or less. And 7 of those were in 1 week in Jamaica. I'll get to that story in just a second because it's a story I'm going to tell. So it was amazing. And somebody should sponsor the Drive-By podcast now that I started talking about gummies. A pod gummy company. It makes total sense now that I'm talking about her. What? But I did not take a gummy tonight. It's just water. I would say it. Maybe one day I'll take the gummy and do a podcast. That would be amazing. I wouldn't want any family members to watch that, but that'd be great to do. First time I smoked a joint in my life, an actual joint. I was 31 years old. 31 years old. I had pot around me when I was in high school. My friends were smoking pot. Sometimes it was in the car. Sometimes it was outside of the car. They'd stop and smoke by some river in Montreal, whatever the case is, or behind somewhere, and offered to me a few times, was never interested. My best friend and I never touched it. My other friends did, but I never felt the need to want to do it. I was never one of those people. I just, started drinking, having some beers when I was younger, never got to the point of inebriated. I've had some drunken stupors, but never to the point, never abused anything, luckily. My abuse has come strictly from another vice I've talked about before, but it wasn't because of alcohol or any abuse that came, is what I'm trying to say. Wasn't because of alcohol, wasn't because of drugs, okay? But we all have our vices, some of which I've discussed already, I think on episode 1 of the Drive-By. But so, didn't smoke my first joint until I was 31. It was the summer. It was at a popular nightclub in Toronto with one of my best friends. We were on the dance floor right towards the end of the night, closing. We're smoking a joint on the dance floor. He says, try it. I go, I've never smoked a joint. He's like, come on. I mean, never? He goes, you got to try it. I tried it. One of the best nights of my life, one of the best feelings in my life. And I immediately thought to myself, what have I been missing? What have I been missing? All these years, this is how good it was, and I never did it? Thank God. Who knows? I would have never left my house. It's like I always say, if the internet existed when I was in high school, we had National Geographic and other magazines and the drapes pulled. If I had the internet, what's on there today? I would have never made it to homeroom. I would have never made it to my first class, ever. Never. I don't think I would have graduated. Okay, so it's the same thing. Had I known how great marijuana was, I'd always feared it. Feared having some kind of bad reaction to it or tripping, and I had heard stories about different drugs. Never touched any drugs in my life. It was fantastic. Shortly thereafter, a couple of weeks later, I smoked my second joint. Fantastic. And then a month after that, again, I'm talking about the summer I was 31 years old, or a few months after that, a Rastafarian friend of mine, one night, come back to my place, and he finally says, he convinces me to smoke a joint with him. But this time the difference was I didn't toke, 2 or 3 tokes, whatever it was. I think it was more like 15 to 20 tokes. I got beyond, I was so high. It was so bad. I was literally bad tripping like I've never had bad trip before. I'd only smoked 2 times prior. It was so bad. I thought my heart was going to explode right through my shirt. That's how bad it was. It was so bad. I thought I had hot stones or lava underneath the sole of my feet, and I kept turning to my friend saying, "Is this supposed to feel like you have lava under your feet?" And he was like, "I don't know. I've never had lava under my feet." I go, "But is there like a feeling, a vibration, like something's burning?" And he's like, "No, man, just chill out. Relax. Lean back." Even though back then the song had not come out yet, but I leaned back. By the way, for anyone listening now on Spotify, Apple, wherever the heck you're listening, I'm leaning back in the chair. I leaned back. What felt like an hour, and then I got up and raced to the bathroom. I raced to the bathroom to check my temperature. Right? So I take out the thermometer, I put it in my mouth. What's regular body temperature? 98.6 degrees? 98.6? I check it, 98.6. Half an hour later, even though my friend, the Rastafarian, insists it wasn't half an hour later, he said that you were literally getting up. What I thought was half an hour in the chair, he said was literally a minute, and you kept getting up. He was dying of laughter, and I was trying to figure out why. Every time I come back into the living room, he was like literally had the dreads, and he was like, he's just pissing his pants. Because he's like, "Frank, you've gone back to he goes, why don't you just take the thermometer with you instead of leaving it there?" So that's what I did after 5 or 6 times of going back and forth and seeing the reading as 98.6. That's regular body temperature. I thought I was dying. I thought I was seriously, everything was on fire. I thought I was expecting to see 104. As a matter of fact, I was so not convinced, I kept showing the thermometer to the Rastafarian, to my friend. I don't even know if he likes being called a Rastafarian, but anyway, the point is, not that there's anything wrong with calling anybody a Rastafarian, but I'm just saying, he has a name. Call him by his name. Aaron. So I kept showing him, true story, I kept showing him the thermometer, and he was dying, pissing his pants more and more. And he said, "You know what, man?" He goes, "You just gotta let it take over, your body, and just chill and relax. Stop thinking you're gonna die. You're not gonna die. Your heart's not racing." I had him put his hand, I remember his hand, he put it on my shirt. And I was like, no, you gotta, so he went up my shirt, a little weird, but, and his hand is touching my flesh, and I feel my heart going, pounding, just throbbing. And he was like, "Dude, nothing. Your heart's not even racing." I go, "But," he goes, "your mind is racing. You need to chill." Anybody listening right now or watching and is a pot smoker is either laughing hysterically at what I'm telling them. Maybe they've gone through this at some point, or are looking at this or listening to this now going, "This guy is an idiot." Yes. When it comes to, I don't consider myself a full idiot, but when it comes to this kind of stuff, I mean, I've experienced a lot of things in my life. This was not one of the things that I enjoyed. So, needless to say, after all this and that bad trip, that I would never smoke another joint, takes me to 14 years after the fact. I vowed never to do it again. 14 years after the fact, I end up in Jamaica with my friends, where not only did we smoke one joint, we smoked, must have been, 14 joints. It felt like one in the morning, one at night. I was smoking 2 joints a day. I didn't even know how to roll a joint. By 2 days into this trip, I was rolling everybody's joints. Myself and Holly, the what are they called when you get a room? A butler. You get an all-inclusive sometimes. You spend a little more, a butler shows up. But I thought it was like a butler assigned to just your room, but it's the butler for the entire floor. She liked hanging out with us, of course, because we had booze all around. We had, not that she was allowed to do any of that, but she found us entertaining. So I'm sure she found me rolling the joints on the balcony very entertaining, considering I didn't know how the hell to roll any joints until 2 days into it. I became a pro, apparently. But anyway, I smoked every single day of that Jamaican trip. As a matter of fact, I may have smoked so much. And by the way, the Jamaican pot was fantastic. It was so good, it turned me into a vegan. So my friends convinced me halfway through that trip to stop eating meat because I was getting acid reflux. I couldn't understand. I went to get an endoscopy. I had everything put into every hole and orifice in my body. Couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. Maybe it's meat. Stopped eating meat. Everything went away. Everything went away. I was vegan in the beginning and then became a vegetarian, pescatarian, whatever you want to call it. I only eat fish, and that's where I'm at now. And I felt really good. Maybe it was the marijuana. I don't know. But my point is, I was high for that entire trip in Jamaica. 7 days I was high. So you would think, after 14 years, the last bad trip I had, which I vowed never to smoke pot again, the 14 years after the fact, where I smoked it twice a day for 7 days straight, then it turned me into a vegan. Like, now I had an epiphany. Now it's like pot was great again, but maybe only Jamaican pot. I don't know. So then I had to investigate. And I thought, what was so special about the Jamaican pot that made me less paranoid and made me enjoy it? Was it because I was older? I was more relaxed. I was in the moment. I was allowing it to take me into this relaxed, chill mood. Whereas before I thought I was overthinking everything. I don't know. What was it? And then it hit me. You know what it was? It's because the pot came from the ass crack of the dealer. That's right. We purchased the pot, and the person who sold us the pot, the drug dealer, was about 50 meters out in the ocean. And by the way, anyone watching this now is probably also thinking, for sure this guy's high because these stories are whacked. No, I'm telling you, nothing's in my system, nothing in my body except for this reverse osmosis water. This is the story. We're on the beach day one. Everybody's telling us you could buy pot anywhere. You could buy any drug you want in Jamaica. This is that. I go, even on the resort. My friends were convinced because they're pot smokers that, we're going to find nothing. Day one, we're not finding anything. Finally, my friend spots the guy, the drug dealer in the ocean. I was like, how do you know? He goes, well, you see that guy who's standing out there, it was about 50 meters out. He's not fishing. The boat dropped him off, and that's where he sells the drugs. And I go, and the resort knows that he sells the drugs? He goes, yeah, the resort, but we have to go speak to him. He has the pot. All right. So we swim out. Two of my friends don't even know how to swim, but we go out. It was more of a shallow walk because water was only literally waist high. We get out there and, we start having conversation, and then the guy finally says, do you guys need anything? And, my friend smiles and then he goes, what do you have? Now he reaches in his swim trunks and I could see his hand. And again, COVID made me less of a germaphobe, but before I was 1,000% germaphobe. Not quite a Howie Mandel, but complete germaphobe. I saw his hand going up his ass. I saw it, right? I'm like, he's sticking it in there. I'm like, what's this guy doing? And he goes and he takes it out. He takes out the marijuana is in his hand. And I'm like, just looking at this going, did he just do what I think he just did? And so I had to make a joke at some point. But so he takes it out. And he goes, this is the price, whatever the case is, and this thing. I go, where was that? And then I was expecting him to lie, but because he was a honest drug dealer, He said, I hide it in my butt cheeks. It was more like, I hide it in my butt cheeks, man. Something like that, right? I can't really. Yeah, man. Because he goes, I don't really want to put it in the rectum. Okay. God forbid, you already have it between your butt cheeks. You didn't want to put it up your rectum. That's a good thing to know. Thank you. So he goes, but don't worry, man, because it's in a Ziploc bag. Well, of course, it's in a Ziploc bag. Anyway, so it was in a Ziploc. It was between his butt cheeks. So God forbid somebody comes, it's up there, for them to search. It's more complicated, he said. So they're never going to check there. They'll check everywhere, but they can't check your asshole. It's good to know. But anyway, so the best pot I've ever smoked in my life, the best pot outside the very first time was in Jamaica, and it came from an ass crack. You would think there's a joke there somewhere. Ass crack. No, ass pot. Fantastic. So when people ask me, where do you get the best pot? I go Jamaica. And if it's really good, it comes from the ass of a dealer. I might be the only person laughing, but I almost spit out my water. All right. Speaking of oceans and drug dealers and pot and between butt cheeks and all that, a memory came up on my iPhone the other day. And it was a memory from, how memories come up from vacations we haven't taken because of this 2 years of being locked up with this COVID-19 malachias. So this picture comes up of myself and my friend Shane. Shane lives in Bermuda with his wife, our friends. We've been there several times to see them. They're beautiful people, great people. A picture of Shane and me holding a Canadian flag brings up another memory. I don't know why. I have all these things happen to me when I go on vacation. There's always something that happens. You name it, I go somewhere. There's always some would call it a mishap. Some would say, Frank, this stuff follows you everywhere when you go on holiday. I don't know. But anyway, this memory comes up on my iPhone. It's one of Shane and I. We're holding a Canadian flag. It dawns on me, oh my God, because I've had some wonderful times in Bermuda. I was reminiscing stuff. You remember this time, remember this time, remember this time? She goes, yeah, and remember Canada Day? When I showed her the picture of the flag, and I said, oh, that was amazing. There's 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 expats and Bermudians celebrating Canada Day on one of their most popular beaches on July 1st in Bermuda. It was an amazing. She goes, no, but what else happened that day? I was like, what else happened that day? She goes, you don't remember the ocean? I started thinking to myself, the ocean. Was I in the ocean buying drugs from a drug dealer again? No. Oh, the ocean, yes. So the memory of a beautiful trip ruined because my wife had to remind me what happened in the ocean that day. Well, what happened was I stopped drinking pop. I could only have ginger ale, but if I have a darker cola, okay, you name it, the darker cola, whether there's corn syrup in it or whatever the case is, things explode inside of me, okay? For the longest time, I thought maybe I have Crohn's, maybe I have colitis, EBS, ABC, EFG, HIJKL, MNOP. I don't know. I thought I had something, okay? And I had tests done, colonoscopy, endoscopies, this, and I should always get everything checked, by the way. Nothing, they couldn't find anything. Well, I stopped, I figured it, figured it out on my own. Dr. Frank, stopped eating meat. Same thing. I stopped having these certain soft drinks. And then I don't have these Montezuma revenge episodes anymore. I haven't had them. But this particular time, I had one of those episodes. We were at the beach. We had taken a walk along, the seaside, along the ocean. There was literally nobody around. And we were a couple of people. And I think we were 4 people, if I'm not mistaken, or 3 people. I can't remember who was with me. And in the distance, I see this couple walking hand in hand. 2 guys walking hand in hand. They're having a romantic, they're both holding their flip-flops, holding hands in the middle, walking barefoot in the ocean, walking along. But it's so bad, that if I don't go to a bathroom soon, you know when they say shit's hitting the fan? Shit's hitting something. So my wife says, you're not going to make it back. And I'm like, I didn't even see porta potties. Where do you go here? I'm not going to make it. Because anyone that suffers from any kind of stomach ailment or running to the bathroom, for a number 2, a number 3, a number 4, a number 5 category, hurricane, whatever you want to call it. This was a category 5. And I knew I always have a timer. And I look at my wife and I always say, Steph, 12 minutes away. She's like, what? And then if she doesn't understand what I'm saying, it's 12 minutes. My stomach's hurting. Then I say, Montezuma's, 12 minutes. It's like I know. This is the buffer. This is the window I have. So now I'm looking around and I'm like, there's nothing, no bathroom in sight. You can't even see the party that's happening so far away. There are some boats in the ocean, but we're still far from it. So my wife goes, well, I'm not going to go on the bush on the side because it looks like it's like some kind of hotel property, whatever. I go, I'm not going to go there. And I go, and I don't have toilet paper. I don't have toilet paper. She goes, well, stop being foolish. Go into the ocean. I'm like, I can't do that in the ocean. She's like, why not? And I thought to myself, why not? You're right. I grew up as an Italian Canadian. We grew up with bidets, okay? And I always envied my friends that had bidets. You know the bidets. Everywhere you go in Italy, it cleans. It cleans your backside after you go to the bathroom. We never had one. But I always wanted one growing up because I go to friends' homes and use their bathrooms and see and always see this bidet thing is saying, do people actually use that? Well, I don't, but my parents do, and it's incredible. It's an incredible feeling, the bidet. So she's like, what's the difference? You're in the water, you do it in the water, okay? And you have to understand the water in Bermuda is as clear as day. It's beautiful ocean, it's blue. So now I'm paranoid that, who's going to see me? Unless somebody's in a helicopter above 20, 30 feet, and who's going to see me do this? Nobody. But I'm still a little hesitant because I have some class. I barely like peeing in an ocean, yet alone now I know it's going to be a Montezuma's revenge in the Atlantic Ocean. In my beautiful Bermuda that I love very much, I don't know if I could do it. My wife goes, listen, I'm going to stay here. She stayed off the water, on the sand on the side. They walked away. They started to walk away. I went out. I swam out maybe like 20, 25 meters, and it happened. It happened, okay? As I said, it was a category 5. Winds were, anyway, disaster. I don't need to go into more detail. I do what I do, and then a wave is, I'm not making this up, a wave starts to come in shortly thereafter. So I do it. It goes this way. It's literally like, as I said, an explosion. It goes this way. I know the details. It goes this way. If you're watching this, it makes more sense than if you're listening to it. But anyway, it goes this way. So I go this way. It goes the other way. And I start swimming because I don't want to be mixed up in any of my, of course. And then this wave just like literally comes in. Okay. And the wave carries on to the beach. My wife and friends are watching this from the side. They've already figured it out because I'm going this way. And the wave crashes into the 2 lovebirds walking. And it's a beautiful moment because the water went right over their, yeah. And that was my Bermuda memory that came up on my phone. I can't even remember any other memories from my trips to Bermuda besides that one, because that's the one that my wife seems to bring up. When the wave crashed, the lovers on the beach together trying to have a moment. Little did they know what came in from the water. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This guy's got to be drunk. I'm not drunk. I'm being honest. I'm not drunk at all. I was going to keep it light, but now I have to end on this note. I wasn't going to mention it, but I'm going to mention it. So, notice how things were quiet for the longest time on social media. Very quiet. A lot of people remained silent, never talked about, standing up for the unvaccinated. No, let's get those people, make them pay. Some even people now are making jokes about, why don't we send the unvaccinated to fight the war, to to fight the war in the Ukraine against the Russians. Let's send them. People joke about these things. Seriously. Those people are not getting canceled. But anyway, people are not talking about any of that. You know, they dehumanized, stigmatized, unvaccinated people. You heard the media. It was like, these are the worst people on the face of the earth, whatever the case is. And no. But now, because legacy media, because you turn on the media and everybody's talking about Ukraine, and don't get me wrong, I feel for Ukraine, and I love Ukrainian people, but I love Russian people too. It doesn't mean that just because you have a thug as a leader, that your entire population is bad, okay? Because we have a thug as a leader. Doesn't mean all Canadians are bad. Same thing with Putin. Doesn't mean all Russians are bad. Kim Jong-un. Doesn't mean all North Koreans are bad people. What I'm getting at here is the flags, the pray for Ukraine, all that started, right? And people, I saw the memes. It was so funny because the people who were experts on COVID, all of a sudden, they became experts on, Ukrainian-Russian relations and history of Ukraine, the Ukraine and Russia, and everybody became an expert all of a sudden. But the thing that I want to mention more than anything else is, funny how, like I make you laugh, funny how everybody starts sharing the flags. It's safe to talk about, the Ukraine and sharing the Russia bad, Ukraine good, and everybody, because the media is saying it's okay. The media has dictated you are allowed to talk about these things. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. 2 years ago, during the Armenian-Azerbaijani clashes, summer of 2020, I had posted a couple of things. There was a war going on there. Armenians were coming out and putting posts. Nothing. Nobody else was writing anything. The people from the two countries involved were all over social media, at least my social media. Nothing. Nobody posted anything because it wasn't cool. The media, no. So many other wars have happened, so many horrible moments for our history, our planet, where things happen. Nothing. As they say, or as I said in my career in the past, radio silence. Zero. But this, because George Clooney or Ellen or who knows who, the 6 o'clock news anchor says it's okay to share the flag and talk about this and talk about that. Now, people feel a need that they could jump aboard this. And I'm not saying that it's not a good thing, because we should pray for all people, whether you're religious or not. But we should want the best for all people, no matter what. What's going on is sad. It makes me sad. It makes a lot of people sad. But it's become almost a thing that you go onto social media and people start to watch other people to see if they're sharing the flag, what they're saying, what pictures they're sharing. And again, it's all because the media has made it okay to talk about this. Whereas, and I'm not comparing it at all. A war is a war. But when something's happening here at home, if you start talking about that or having a discussion about that, they'll find a way to dehumanize anybody who participated in whatever it was or whatever the event was. We know what the event was, but you understand what I'm trying to say? And I'm not comparing both, but I'm saying it's incredible how people didn't write or didn't post anything about that. The masses I'm talking about. Of course, the fringe minority with unacceptable views, they posted whatever they had to post. But point being is that it's incredible to me how it's almost like the public is looking for permission. So we look for permission to say, oh yeah, this we have to jump on board. Peace and love to the Ukraine, bad Russia. Peace and love and respect and power to, we're thinking about you and all that. But then there's like 20 other confrontations and wars happening globally right now. As we say in Italian, mangigani, which means nothing. Silence. It is crazy to me, the level of hypocrisy, and I was going to keep this light, and I'm almost done. The level of hypocrisy that exists. It's the same thing with Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky has come out in support of the IHHF, basically penalizing Russian and Belarusian people or players from participating in next year's World Juniors here in, if I'm not mistaken, in Canada, happening in Alberta. So they won't allow actually any players from those two places to participate at their hockey tournaments, this being specifically the World Juniors. So then I thought to myself, wait a minute, but we just sent athletes from all around the world, including here in Canada, to China for the Winter Olympics. Now, governments boycotted, say what you want. The Canadian government stands against the whatever, but we're sending all our... So you sent all your athletes. So with China, no, you don't make an example of what they've done with all their human rights violations, everything they've done that's been so wrong. I mean, are we going to cancel? We didn't cancel LeBron James. Nike's in bed with China, who's in bed with LeBron James. So we haven't canceled. So let's cancel all Russian players, because the next thing Wayne Gretzky mentioned, where he's leading with all of this, is they should not allow Russian NHLers, while we're at it, to play in the National Hockey League. Same thing, to protest what Vladimir Putin has done with his invasion of the Ukraine and his war on the Ukraine. But it's crazy to me, because if that's the case, then you have to be consistent across the board with every country that does something despotic or seen by the rest of the world as undemocratic and wrong. Then you have to hold them accountable as well. You can't pick and choose. Okay, so China, yeah, a little slap on the hand. Go. Russia, bad. So this is the crazy part to me right now that's happening. And we see it, you know. We have a divided world because we have a government that divides us. We have a media that divides us. We have a government that tells us what is right. Like Trudeau, our prime minister, said last week. And it's wrong if they vote no. This is what he said when he was talking in reference to the Emergencies Act. It's wrong. There's people who want to hold up the government's decision. This is how they speak. So in other words, there's no opinion anymore. Why vote? Why vote? Why even go to the ballot box? It's like, as I said, it's an autocratic democracy. We vote them in, then they take over. You have no say anymore. So why vote at the end of the day? We need to hold these governments accountable. All these governments, they're dividing us. The media is dividing us. They're telling us what we can post. If you post anything against that, I saw people posting, what about, the people of Russia? There's got to be some good people in Russia. There's a lot of great people in Russia, let me tell you. And now they're going to be, of course, as a population, dehumanized, as I said, because of their thug, and I'm not even going to get into that conversation, but because of their thug leader. And the way I look at it right now, there's a lot of thug leaders around the world. There's a lot more, and some objects may appear closer than they actually are, and some objects are actually closer than they actually are. And some may be just up the street here in our nation's capital. Too many people, too many leaders, in my opinion, are out of control with power. Too many of them. And we need not look far away. Here at home, we've experienced it with everything we've experienced in the last, several months especially. They're out of control. They love the power. They don't want to give it up. So hold them all accountable. Let's play by the same rules with Russia and China, not pick and choose, or we're going to do this, but we're going to do this for them, or we're going to do this for... To me, it's just next level hypocrisy to the point where I just can't, there are days where, and I'm sure other people feel the same way, I can't even go on social media anymore because I'm looking at it I'm just going, this is unbelievable. It's like, who's buying this? Who's buying this anymore? It's a joke. It really is. It comes to the point now, I'm tired. I'm tired of talking about all this. But we're so done. We're done. Look, I tried to keep this whole podcast light. I couldn't end this episode of the Drive-By without mentioning something. I wanted to mention something that was going on in the news at the moment. And I just felt that, at some point, as I always mention, this podcast is going to go back to hopefully sitting with somebody shooting the shit and not having the shit be the same shit we deal with every single day. Because it's 2 years now, as I said. March 13th was the date for me that I remember. Might be the 14th for you, might be the 12th, might be in February, depending when you first experienced your life cancellation, when COVID came into your life. But I'm done. Time to move on. I'm so glad that I mentioned a whole bunch of other things I wanted to talk about that were a lot more fun and lighthearted on this podcast. And I can't wait for the day we go back and COVID is a distant memory, but I'm almost scared to say that because I don't want to jinx it. And I just have this suspicion and this feeling that somehow it stays with us, because it's not going anywhere, but it stays with us in more ways than one, because the governments of the world have had too much power they've taken away from the people that they don't want to necessarily. Some have given it back, but others don't want to give up. When you have that power, you don't want to give it back. Thank you so much for watching the 10th episode of The Drive-By. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the YouTube Drive-By podcast page, comment, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Google, TuneIn, Podbean, wherever you might listen to your favorite podcasts, including this one, then please leave a comment. And if it gives you an opportunity to rate with stars, give a 5-star rating. I sound like an Uber driver now. Give me a 5-star rating. I'll give you a 5-star rating. You give me a 5-star rating. I'll give you a 5-star rating. I'll give it one back if I can. Thanks so much for watching. And we'll catch you again next week.
This is the Drive-By with Freeway Frank.
Watch all episodes of The Drive-By on YouTube. Listen in on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, Podbean, and TuneIn.